The nation tuned in for what was expected to be a light-hearted celebrity roundtable on the Spotlight Hour, a primetime live broadcast known for its unexpected pairings and cultural conversations. The producers had taken a bold step with this episode. On one side of the table sat Barron Trump, now 19 years old, tall, confident, and already carving out a reputation for himself as a sharp, opinionated media personality with a massive online following. Dressed in limited edition sneakers, a custom streetwear jacket, and a glint of bravado in his eyes, he used the kind of modern swagger that dominated youth culture. Opposite him was the legendary Denzel Washington, a man who needed no introduction. With decades of cinematic excellence behind him and a reputation as a deeply principled figure both on and off screen, he carried himself with quiet power. Dressed in a simple black suit, no flashy jewelry or designer labels, he radiated an energy that was grounded, focused, and quietly commanding. He greeted everyone with a firm handshake and a warm smile, completely unaffected by the showbiz buzz that surrounded him. As the cameras rolled and the host welcomed viewers, there was an air of curiosity. How would these two figures, so different in age, style, and life experience, connect? The host began with an easy question about generational differences in values, but Barron wasted no time stirring the pot. Leaning forward with a half-smile, he said, "Mr. Washington, I respect the work you've done, but do you really think those old-school speeches still matter to people my age? I mean, we're out here building brands, not reading monologues." There was a soft gasp from the audience, half surprise, half anticipation. Even the host glanced quickly at Denzel to gauge his reaction. But Denzel didn't flinch. He turned his head slowly toward Barron, eyebrows slightly raised, and simply nodded. His lips curved into a knowing smile, like a professor hearing a freshman challenge the syllabus. He didn't reply right away. He didn't need to. The pause alone said everything: measured, intentional, powerful. The tension didn't feel like conflict, it felt like a lesson was about to begin. Barron sensed the crowd's reaction but mistook it for encouragement. With his signature confidence, he pushed further, determined to seize the moment and assert himself as the new voice of a generation. He shifted in his seat, clearly relishing the attention. "Let's be real here," he continued, his tone light but laced with provocation. "Most young people today aren't sitting around watching long-winded inspirational movies or speeches about honor and integrity. They want something real, unfiltered, something that reflects the world as it is, not how people wish it was." He smirked slightly, letting the words hang in the air like a challenge. "Legacy's nice, sure, but relevance, that's what actually matters now." The host looked increasingly uneasy, glancing at the camera and then back at Denzel, sensing the temperature in the room rising. The studio audience murmured again, this time not just in surprise, but with a hint of discomfort. A few people exchanged looks, unsure whether Barron's comments were bold or just brazen. Barron sat back, clearly pleased with himself, as though he had made his point and left no room for debate. His expression seemed to say, "Checkmate." But Denzel remained still, his calm expression unchanged. He didn't shift in his seat. He didn't bristle. He didn't look offended. He simply regarded the young man before him with a kind of quiet curiosity, as though studying a puzzle he'd seen before. And then, he spoke, softly at first, but with undeniable clarity. "Young man," Denzel said, leaning slightly forward, his voice slow and deliberate, "I've walked through storms you haven't yet imagined. Legacy isn't about clinging to the past, it's about building foundations that don't crumble when the wind changes. It's about standing for something when it's easier to fall for anything." The room fell silent. Barron blinked, visibly caught off guard by the gravity of Denzel's words. Denzel's tone never shifted into condescension, instead, it carried the weight of experience, the kind that could only be earned through years of trial, failure, resilience, and grace. He wasn't trying to put Barron in his place, he was offering him a deeper place to stand. "If you don't know where you come from," Denzel continued, eyes locked on Barron's, "you'll never know where you're going. And if everything has to be loud to be heard, maybe what you're saying isn't strong enough to stand in silence." The words were heavy, but they didn't crush, they settled like truth often does, quietly but unmistakably. The crowd remained hushed, fully present, watching not just a conversation unfold but a shift in energy, in perspective. Barron looked down for a brief second, his confidence faltering ever so slightly, not from embarrassment, but from the recognition that he had just been handed something real. Something unfiltered. Denzel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He stood slowly, with the kind of calm that fills a room more completely than anger ever could. The camera instinctively zoomed in on him, as if it knew something important was about to happen. He looked out into the crowd, his expression neither smug nor defensive, but thoughtful, grounded. His presence was commanding, not because he demanded attention, but because he had earned it over a lifetime of discipline, integrity, and quiet strength. "I don't raise my voice to win arguments," he began, his voice even and rich. "I live my truth to win respect." The words resonated like the slow, steady toll of a bell, clear and unshakable. The studio, packed with industry elites and streaming live to millions, became utterly still. The younger audience members leaned forward in their seats, while older viewers nodded silently, knowing the power behind the words. Denzel didn't look back at Barron as he continued, his message was bigger than the moment. "We live in a time where everyone wants to be seen, to be heard, to go viral," he said, pacing gently across the stage, never rushing. "But the truth, real truth, it doesn't shout, it stands still, it endures." He stopped and looked toward the cameras. "The problem today isn't the lack of truth. It's the lack of listening. We confuse noise with importance. We think going fast means we're going far." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. Then, turning slowly to face Barron, he added, "You want raw reality? Here's some. Life will humble you. Fame won't protect you. Followers won't guide you. And when you hit that wall, and trust me, everyone does, you'll remember moments like this. Not your tweets, not your trends, but the truth someone spoke to you when you weren't ready to hear it." Barron, once brimming with bravado, sat silently now. His posture, once defiant, had softened. His expression had changed, not out of shame, but out of reflection. It was as if he suddenly saw himself from the outside, a young man trying to assert something he hadn't yet fully lived. He opened his mouth, almost to respond, but no words came. Only silence. The crowd erupted, not with wild applause or laughter, but with a standing ovation full of reverence. It was a moment not of humiliation, but of transformation, where one man's wisdom illuminated not just a lesson for a young challenger, but for everyone watching. Even those who came in skeptical of Denzel or aligned with Barron's boldness couldn't deny what had just happened. A truth had been spoken, and the silence that followed spoke even louder. Backstage, the energy was completely different from the electric tension that had gripped the studio just moments before. The bright lights were behind them now, replaced by the hum of equipment, quiet footsteps, and muffled voices from the production crew. Barron Trump stood near a corner of the hallway, his hands in his pockets, his head slightly lowered. He wasn't surrounded by his usual entourage. There were no cameras capturing his expression, just a long, still moment of solitude. Denzel Washington, calm as ever, was thanking a makeup assistant when he noticed Barron standing alone. He walked over without hesitation, not as a victor approaching someone he had bested, but as a mentor extending something far more powerful than critique, understanding. The hallway was quiet as the two men stood a few feet apart. Barron looked up, his eyes searching for something, maybe dignity, maybe forgiveness, maybe just a little clarity. "I didn't mean to disrespect you," Barron said quietly, his voice stripped of its earlier bravado. There was no mic now, no audience to impress. It was just him, young, uncertain, and exposed. "I thought I was making a point. Saying something bold." Denzel nodded slowly. He didn't speak for a few seconds, letting the silence stretch just long enough to feel real. Then he placed a hand gently on Barron's shoulder, his touch firm but kind. "It's not about what you meant," he said, his voice soft but steady. "It's about what you choose to learn." His gaze held no trace of condescension, only a deep sincerity. "You've got a voice. That's a gift. But how you use it, that's what defines a man. Don't waste it trying to be heard. Use it to say something worth remembering." Barron didn't reply right away. But he nodded, the kind of nod that comes when someone hears the truth and finally lets it in. It was a moment that didn't need to be broadcast, because not all moments of growth happen under lights. Some happen in quiet corners, when pride is lowered just enough to let wisdom in. In the days that followed, social media exploded with clips of the interview. Denzel's words were quoted everywhere, from college classrooms to church sermons to think pieces on generational gaps and cultural humility. Even people who didn't usually agree with either man found themselves moved by what had unfolded. Hashtags like hashtag Denzel Wisdom and hashtag Silent Truth began trending, not because they were catchy, but because they spoke to something real and barren. He didn't say much publicly in the days that followed. No viral clapbacks. No ironic memes. Just silence. But not the kind of silence that comes from defeat. It was the silence of someone beginning to listen, for the first time. Q.